hidden beneath the waves are the ghosts of war. From the battleships to the submarines, these wrecks tell haunting stories of ambition and tragedy. But what's left of them today? In this video, we'll uncover 12 extraordinary wrecks scattered across the globe, each with its own fascinating story. From the devastating loss of the USS Arizona at Pearl Harbor, to the mysterious sinking of Soviet sub K-129 and the secret CIA mission to salvage the wreck. We'll explore their history, the events that led to their sinking, and the haunting wrecks that divers and historians still marvel at to this day. Welcome to Shipwreck History. The USS Arizona is one of the most iconic and tragic symbols of American naval history. Commissioned in 1916, she was a Pennsylvania-class battleship designed to project power during the era of steel dreadnoughts. At over 600 feet long, with a top speed of 21 knots, the USS Arizona was equipped with 12 14-inch guns, making her a formidable force in the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet. Her early years were spent in routine operations, including training exercises and ceremonial duties. By the early 1940s, the Arizona was stationed at Pearl Harbor, a vital strategic base in the Pacific. But her place in history was sealed on the morning of December 7, 1941, when Japanese aircraft launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. The Arizona was hit by several bombs during the assault, but the most devastating was an armor-piercing bomb that struck her forward magazines. The explosion was cataclysmic, tearing the battleship apart and killing 1,177 of her crew, nearly half of the total casualties at Pearl Harbor that day. Within minutes, the Arizona sank to the harbor floor, her burning wreckage marking the dawn of America's entry into World War II. Efforts to salvage the ship began almost immediately, but the extent of the damage made a full recovery impossible. Instead, the decision was made to leave the Arizona, where she lay, a lasting memorial to those who lost their lives. Over the decades, she has become a powerful symbol of sacrifice, visited by millions of people each year at the USS Arizona Memorial, built above the wreck in 1962. Beneath the surface, the Arizona's remains are hauntingly preserved. Her hull rests in the shallow waters of Pearl Harbor, with oil still seeping from her tanks. Divers and researchers continue to study the wreck, which offers insights into both the ship's final moments and the corrosive effects of time. Today, the USS Arizona is not just a sunken battleship. It's a time capsule, a graveyard, and a poignant reminder of the cost of war. Her story continues to resonate, ensuring that the memory of those lost won't be forgotten. The Bismarck, named for Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, was the pride of the German Kriegsmarine and one of the most feared battleships of World War II. First launched in February 1939, this massive warship measured over 820 feet long, with a displacement of 50,000 tons when fully loaded. Armed with 8 15-inch guns, she was a floating fortress, capable of engaging any ship in battle. Her speed and firepower made her a formidable symbol of Germany's naval ambition. In May 1941, the Bismarck embarked on her first and only combat mission, Operation Rheinebing. Alongside the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen, the Bismarck's objective was to break out into the North Atlantic and disrupt convoys supplying Great Britain. On May 24th, she engaged British warships in the Denmark Strait. In this fateful battle, the Bismarck dealt a devastating blow to the British Navy by sinking the battlecruiser HMS Hood, one of Britain's most iconic ships, with a single catastrophic hit. Only 3 of the HMS Hood's crew of over 1,400 survived. The Bismarck also damaged the HMS Prince of Wales, forcing it to retreat. The Bismarck herself did not escape unscathed. Her rudder was damaged, affecting her maneuverability and forcing her to alter plans and head for repairs in occupied France. The Royal Navy, outraged by the loss of the Hood, launched an all-out pursuit of the Bismarck. On the morning of May 27th, British warships, including the battleships HMS King George V and HMS Rodney, closed in. After about 100 minutes of fighting, the Bismarck was sunk by the combined effects of shellfire, torpedo hits, and deliberate scuttling by her crew. The Bismarck sank on May 27, 1941, resulting in the loss of over 2,000 crew members. Only 114 survived. The wreck of the Bismarck was discovered in June 1989 by Dr. Robert Ballard, the same oceanographer who found the Titanic. Resting at a depth of 15,719 feet in the Atlantic, the wreck remains astonishingly well preserved, a testament to the durability of its design. The ship lies upright on the seabed, with her superstructure heavily damaged from the intense bombardment she endured. Today, the Bismarck is a powerful reminder of the immense destruction during World War II. Her story, from her majestic beginnings to her tragic end, continues to captivate historians and naval enthusiasts alike. The K-129 was a Soviet ballistic missile submarine launched in 1959 during the height of the Cold War. As a diesel-electric powered sub, it was designed to carry 3 nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles, making it a key asset in the Soviet Union's strategic deterrence forces. Its role was clear: patrol the Pacific, stay undetected, and if necessary, launch its missiles against adversaries. As tensions between the US and the Soviets escalated in the 1960s, submarines like the K-129 became a cornerstone of nuclear strategy, operating silently in the depths of the world's oceans. In March 1968, the K-129 embarked on a routine patrol mission from its base in Kamchatka. But somewhere in the vast North Pacific, communication was abruptly lost. When the submarine failed to report back, the Soviet Navy launched an extensive search, scouring thousands of miles of open ocean. Despite deploying a large fleet of ships and aircraft, the Soviets couldn't locate the missing submarine, and the crew of 98 was presumed lost. Unbeknownst to the Soviets, U.S. underwater surveillance networks detected an acoustic anomaly consistent with an underwater explosion. Using this data, the U.S. Navy identified a potential location for the wreck and dispatched the advanced submarine USS Halibut to investigate. Operating under extreme secrecy, the Halibut used deep-sea cameras and remote equipment to confirm the wreck's location, over 3 miles below the ocean's surface, approximately 1,560 miles northwest of Hawaii. The discovery of the sub set the stage for one of the most ambitious and secretive Cold War operations, Project Azorian. Spearheaded by the CIA, this covert mission aimed to recover the submarine and its valuable contents, including cryptographic materials and potential nuclear warheads. The CIA commissioned the construction of the Hughes-Glomar Explorer, using Howard Hughes's name and the cover story of a deep-sea mining operation to conceal the vessel's true purpose. In 1974, the Glomar Explorer reached the wreck site and attempted to lift the sub from its extreme depth of over 16,000 feet. The operation was partially successful, raising a portion of the submarine, which included nuclear-tipped torpedoes and the remains of 6 Soviet sailors. These sailors were given a formal burial at sea, with full military honors, a gesture the U.S. recorded and reportedly shared with Soviet officials years later. Much of the sub remained on the ocean floor, and questions about its mission and cause of sinking lingered. Theories about its loss range from mechanical failure to a possible collision with a U.S. submarine, though no conclusive evidence has surfaced. The K-129 story remains one of the Cold War's most enigmatic tales, blending espionage, advanced technology, and the ever-present shadow of nuclear conflict. When the HMS Coventry left the shipyard in 1974, she represented the pinnacle of modern naval engineering in the Cold War era. As a guided missile destroyer, the Coventry was designed to protect fleet operations from air attacks with her cutting-edge radar systems and Sea Dart surface-to-air missiles. At 410 feet in length and capable of speeds exceeding 30 knots, she was a powerful addition to the Royal Navy's fleet, symbolizing Britain's commitment to defending its interest on the global stage. HMS Coventry was primarily involved in training exercises and patrolling before her deployment in the Falklands War in 1982. And that's where her story took a tragic turn. During the war, she played a pivotal role in Britain's campaign to reclaim the islands from Argentine occupation. Deployed to the South Atlantic, the the Coventry was tasked with providing air defense for British ships and supporting ground troops. Early in the conflict, her advanced missile systems intercepted multiple enemy aircraft, demonstrating the crucial value of her capabilities. Alongside HMS Broadsword, the Coventry was a cornerstone of British naval operations in the region, taking on dangerous missions to ensure the fleet's safety. However, the stakes escalated as the conflict reached its peak. On May 25, 1982, Coventry and Broadsword were stationed northwest of the Falklands, acting as a decoy to lure Argentine aircraft away from other British ships. The strategy was high risk, and that afternoon, it faced a severe test. Argentine Skyhawk jets launched a coordinated attack, targeting the two ships. In the chaos of battle, the Coventry's missile system struggled to lock onto the fast-moving aircraft. 3 1,000-pound bombs struck the Coventry in quick succession. 2 of them detonated, tearing through her hull, igniting fires and causing catastrophic flooding. Within 20 minutes, the once proud destroyer capsized and sank. The crew's evacuation was swift, but 19 sailors were tragically lost in the attack. The wreck of the HMS Coventry lies upside down in approximately 300 feet of water off Pebble Island in the South Atlantic. Discovered later in 1982, the site has been explored by both divers and remotely operated vehicles, and is a monument to the sacrifices made during the Falklands War. The wreck is now classified as a controlled site under the Protection of Military Remains Act. Though her service lasted less than a decade, the Coventry story continues to live on as an example of courage, strategy, and the heavy cost of conflict. The HMAS Sydney, a light cruiser of the Royal Australian Navy, began her distinguished career in 1935. Built in England and named after the Australian city, the Sydney was armed with 8 6-inch guns and boasted a top speed of over 30 knots. During the early years of World War II, she became a source of national pride, achieving significant victories in the Mediterranean. Her most famous triumph came in July 1940, when she sank an Italian cruiser in a high-stakes naval battle near Crete. The victory established the Sydney as one of the most celebrated ships in the Australian fleet. However, Sydney's legendary status would take a tragic turn in November 1941. Returning from convoy escort duty in Southeast Asia, she encountered the German auxiliary cruiser Cormoran off the coast of Western Australia. The Cormoran, disguised as a Dutch merchant vessel, caught the Sydney off guard. When the Sydney closed in to identify the ship, Cormoran revealed her hidden guns and opened fire. Despite being heavily armed, the Sydney was unable to respond effectively as Cormoran's opening salvo disabled her bridge and key systems. A fierce and chaotic battle followed, leaving both ships critically damaged. Sydney suffered catastrophic hits to her magazines and engine room, leading to a massive explosion and uncontrollable fires. She drifted out of sight, and all 645 crew members were lost, making it the largest loss of life in Australian naval history. The Cormoran fared no better. Her crew scuttled the damaged ship, though most of her sailors survived and were later captured by Australian forces. For decades, the disappearance of HMAS Sydney was shrouded in mystery, sparking intense speculation and controversy. Some questioned how a warship of her caliber could fall to a disguised raider, while others debated the exact location of her sinking. The mystery was finally solved in March 2008, when the wrecks of both Sydney and Cormoran were discovered 12 miles apart, off the coast of Western Australia. The Sydney rests upright at a depth of over 8,000 feet, her hull heavily damaged, but with parts intact. The discovery confirmed the accounts of Cormoran's survivors and brought closure to decades of speculation. Today, the wreck is both a war grave and a symbol of sacrifice, honoring the lives of those lost in one of Australia's greatest wartime tragedies. The HMCS Athabaskan, known as the Unlucky Lady, was a destroyer of the Royal Canadian Navy during World War II. Launched in 1941, she was designed for speed, versatility, and durability, equipped to hunt submarines, engage enemy ships, and provide critical naval support. The Athabaskan was part of the Tribal-class fleet that represented the pinnacle of destroyer technology, boasting powerful armament and advanced radar systems. Despite her strengths, her service was plagued by misfortunes, including repeated mechanical issues and combat losses, which earned her an infamous reputation among the crews. On April 29, 1944, the Athabaskan was tasked with patrolling the English Channel alongside her sister ship, HMCS Haida. The mission was to intercept German Elbling-class destroyers, which had been conducting aggressive operations. The Canadian destroyers spotted the German vessels, T-24 and T-27, just off the coast of Brittany, France. A fierce engagement ensued, with the Haida managing to disable the T-27, forcing it to run aground. However, as the Athabaskan maneuvered to engage, she was struck by a torpedo launched by the T-24. The torpedo impact caused a catastrophic explosion, igniting fires that spread rapidly through the ship. The blast also crippled her propulsion, leaving the Athabaskan dead in the water and vulnerable to further attack. As the flames intensified, the order was given to abandon ship. Tragically, the chaos of the sinking, combined with the frigid waters and ongoing enemy fire, claimed the lives of 128 crew members. Despite the danger, the Haida risked further engagement to rescue survivors from the icy waters. An additional 83 sailors were captured by German forces and spent the remainder of the war in POW camps. The sinking of the Athabaskan remained a point of deep national significance in Canada, as it marked the largest loss of life aboard a single Royal Canadian Navy ship during World War II. For decades, the location of her wreck was a mystery, despite extensive efforts to locate her final resting place. In 2002, an expedition successfully discovered her remains scattered across the seabed near the island of Bats. The wreck is lying in approximately 300 feet of water and revealed the devastating impact of the torpedo strike, with much of the ship's structure heavily fragmented. Memorials in Canada and France honor those who were lost and those who survived under extraordinary circumstances, ensuring that the story of the unlucky lady endures as part of Canada's proud naval history. The USS Indianapolis was a Portland-class heavy cruiser commissioned in 1932. During the Second World War, the ship played a vital role in numerous Pacific operations, including providing critical support during the invasions of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. But its most secretive mission came in July 1945, when it delivered components for an atomic bomb to Tinian Island. A mission so classified that even the ship's crew didn't fully know its importance. On July 30, 1945, just days after completing this delivery, tragedy struck. While en route to the Philippines, the Indianapolis was torpedoed by the Japanese submarine I-58. Multiple torpedoes struck the ship, causing catastrophic damage. The USS Indianapolis sank quickly, in approximately 12 minutes. Of the 1,200 crew members aboard, about 800 survived the initial sinking and were left adrift in the ocean. Over the next several days, exposure, dehydration, and shark attacks reduced the number of survivors to just 316. The U.S. Navy didn't know about the sinking of the USS Indianapolis for over 3 days, because of communication errors, wartime complacency, and a directive that limited radio traffic. Desperation and fear grew, as crewmen awaited rescue in shark-infested waters. The rescue came by chance when a Navy patrol plane spotted survivors and pulled them to safety. The sinking of the Indianapolis is the greatest single loss of life in U.S. Navy history from a single ship. Captain of the Indianapolis, Charles McVeigh, was court-martialed and convicted for hazarding his ship by failing to zigzag, though he was later cleared. There is some evidence to suggest the Navy bore some responsibility for putting the ship in harm's way. The ship's story didn't end there. For decades, the exact location of the wreck remained a mystery, shrouded in speculation and myths. Finally, in 2017, a team led by billionaire philanthropist Paul Allen discovered the Indianapolis at a depth of over 18,000 feet in the Philippine Sea. The wreck is well preserved, with its hull and key features still visible, offering a reminder of its tragic final moments. Today, the Indianapolis stands as a symbol of both the sacrifices of war and the resilience of its survivors, ensuring its legacy continues on. The USS Scorpion, a skipjack-class nuclear-powered attack submarine, was commissioned in 1960 as part of the U.S. Navy's Cold War fleet. Designed for speed and agility, the Scorpion was equipped to track and engage Soviet vessels, making it a critical player in the tense underwater chess match of the era. During its years of service, she participated in training exercises and intelligence-gathering missions, often shadowing Soviet naval activity. However, its service ended in tragedy, leaving behind one of the most enduring mysteries in naval history. In May 1968, the Scorpion was returning to its home port in Norfolk, Virginia, after a 3-month deployment in the Mediterranean, which included monitoring Soviet naval maneuvers near the Canary Islands. While en route, the submarine suddenly went silent, and after failing to return to Norfolk, it was officially declared missing. In the months following the USS Scorpion's disappearance, the U.S. Navy launched an extensive search operation, combing the Atlantic with ships, submarines, and aircraft. The initial search yielded no clues, deepening the mystery surrounding its fate. It wasn't until October 1968, 5 months after its last communication, that the wreck was finally located 400 miles southwest of the Azores at a depth of over 10,000 feet. The hull was found broken into several sections, with the forward part of the submarine heavily damaged. The cause of the Scorpion's sinking remains uncertain to this day. Various theories have emerged over the years, ranging from a catastrophic torpedo malfunction to an internal explosion. Some experts suggest that mechanical failure or structural fatigue could have played a role, while others speculate that Soviet interference might have been involved during the height of Cold War tensions. Despite multiple investigations, the Navy has never officially confirmed a definitive cause. The wreck of the USS Scorpion remains one of the deepest military shipwrecks ever discovered. The site, sitting in the vast abyss of the Atlantic, is treated as a war grave, with its exact location kept confidential to deter unauthorized exploration. Photos of the wreck reveal haunting scenes of the once mighty vessel, now corroded and consumed by the deep ocean environment. Today, the loss of the Scorpion and its 99 crew members is remembered by their families and historians, and there are multiple memorials dedicated to them. The incident led to improvements in submarine safety and operational protocols, but for many, the unanswered questions surrounding the Scorpion's fate continue to cast a shadow over its legacy. The USS Saratoga was one of the first aircraft carriers built by the U.S. Navy when it was commissioned in 1927. Originally designed as a battlecruiser, it was converted into an aircraft carrier under the limitations of the Washington Naval Treaty. This massive ship, nearly 900 feet long, quickly became a cornerstone of naval aviation, serving as a testing ground for new carrier strategies and aircraft during the interwar years. During World War II, the Saratoga saw extensive action. She was part of the early Pacific campaigns, including the Battle of Wake Island and the Guadalcanal campaign. Despite being torpedoed twice during the war, the carrier always managed to return to service after repairs. One of her most notable moments came in 1944 when she became a training carrier, preparing aviators for the final phases of the war in the Pacific. After the war, the USS Saratoga was decommissioned, but her story wasn't over. With the advent of nuclear weapons, she was selected as a target ship for Operation Crossroads in 1946, a series of nuclear tests conducted at Bikini Atoll. The Saratoga was exposed to nuclear detonations, the second of which sank her on July 25. Her sinking marked the end of an era for one of the most storied ships in the U.S. Navy. The USS Saratoga lies upright on the lagoon floor at Bikini Atoll, approximately 50 feet below the surface. The wreck is considered one of the largest and most accessible diveable aircraft carriers in the world. While the area was previously contaminated due to nuclear testing, radiation levels have decreased over time, and the site has been deemed safe for diving under controlled conditions. The USS Saratoga's legacy is one of innovation, resilience, and sacrifice in the name of technological progress, making her one of the most iconic vessels in U.S. naval history. The USS Yorktown was one of the most celebrated aircraft carriers of World War II, playing a pivotal role in the Pacific. The USS Yorktown was commissioned in 1937 at Naval Station Norfolk in Virginia. She was equipped with state-of-the-art aviation facilities and carried a robust air group. The Yorktown's speed and firepower made her a key asset in the fight against Japanese forces. Her first major test came in the Battle of the Coral Sea in May 1942, where she helped halt Japan's advancement toward Australia. She was damaged during the battle, but her crew's determination ensured she could still fight. After rapid repairs at Pearl Harbor, completed in just 72 hours, she was thrust into action again at the decisive Battle of Midway in June 1942. At Midway, the Yorktown's aircraft were instrumental in sinking the Japanese carriers, Kaga and Soryu. However, the ship herself became a target. On June 4th, Japanese aircraft struck the Yorktown with devastating bombs and torpedoes, leaving her heavily damaged. Despite valiant efforts by her crew to keep her afloat, she was struck again days later by a Japanese submarine, which delivered the fatal blow. The Yorktown's sinking was a significant loss for the U.S. Navy, but her sacrifice helped secure an unparalleled victory at Midway, shifting the tide of the war in the Pacific. The wreck of the USS Yorktown was discovered in 1998 by famed oceanographer Robert Ballard, resting upright on the ocean floor at a depth of over 16,000 feet. The wreck offers a haunting glimpse into her storied past, with planes still visible on her flight deck. The Yorktown's legacy endures for the bravery of her crew and her critical role in turning the tide of World War II. Her story remains one of innovation, resilience, and sacrifice. The HMS Repulse and HMS Prince of Wales shared a fate in one of the most dramatic naval losses of World War II. Together, they formed Force Z, a British fleet sent to counter Japan's expansion in Southeast Asia. This was an ambitious show of strength, but it ultimately led to disaster. The HMS Repulse was a renowned class battlecruiser launched in 1916. She had a long service history, participating in both World Wars, and was well regarded for her speed and firepower. The HMS Prince of Wales was a brand new King George V class battleship. She was launched in 1939 and had already made a name for herself, taking part in the hunt for the Bismarck earlier in the war. On December 8, 1941, just after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, Force Z sailed from Singapore to intercept Japanese invasion convoys threatening Malaya. However, without air cover, the fleet faced a grave disadvantage. On December 10th, Japanese bombers and torpedo planes launched a relentless assault. Despite their anti-aircraft defenses, the Repulse and the Prince of Wales were overwhelmed. The Prince of Wales was hit by multiple torpedoes, disabling her rudder and power systems, while the Repulse succumbed to a series of bomb hits and torpedoes. Both ships sank within hours of each other, claiming over 800 lives. Their loss marked a turning point in naval warfare. The sinking of these capital ships by air power underscored the vulnerability of even the most advanced warships without proper air support. It also signaled the end of Britain's naval dominance in the region. The wrecks of the Repulse and Prince of Wales were discovered not long after their sinking, lying about 200 feet deep in the South China Sea. In the 2000s, more detailed surveys were conducted, offering more extensive documentation of their condition. Both ships are officially designated as war graves, with their remains protected under international law. Divers who have visited these sites report haunting views of the ships, with guns still pointing skyward, as if frozen in their final moments of battle. Today, the story of the HMS Repulse and HMS Prince of Wales reminds us how quickly naval warfare evolved during World War II, and the sacrifices of the sailors who fought to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share or hit the thanks button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for all things shipwrecks. Let us know in the comments what shipwreck you want us to cover next. Until next time, keep exploring.